My name is Serafina Walsh. I'm 28, and 3 years ago, my entire family gathered around our Thanksgiving table to systematically destroy what they called my ridiculous cafe fantasy. My parents burst into laughter when I announced my business plan. My golden child brother Marcus smirked while calculating his next stock portfolio move, and my sister Emma rolled her eyes so hard I thought they'd fall out. Fast forward to last week, my downtown cafe just hit its millionth dollar in revenue. Marcus got fired from his corporate job, and guess who's suddenly calling me inspirational while secretly seething with jealousy and begging for loans? Before I dive into how family betrayal turned into the sweetest revenge story you'll ever hear, I'd love to know where you're watching from. Drop your city in the comments below, smash that like button if you've ever had family doubt your dreams, and don't forget to subscribe because this story gets absolutely wild. Trust me, you'll want to stick around to see how karma served my family the most satisfying slice of humble pie. Growing up in the Walsh household meant living under the constant shadow of practical expectations. My father, Richard Walsh, built his identity around his accounting firm, while my mother Patricia prided herself on being married to a successful businessman. They raised us with one unshakable belief: only traditional careers led to respect and financial security. Marcus, 3 years older than me, embodied everything they wanted in a child. Straight A's business degree from Northwestern, and by age 25, he was pulling in six figures at a prestigious investment firm downtown. He drove a BMW, lived in a luxury high-rise, and never missed an opportunity to remind everyone about his latest promotion or bonus. Our parents treated him like he'd discovered the cure for poverty. Then there was Emma, 2 years younger, following the safe path as a registered nurse. While not as financially flashy as Marcus, she had their approval because healthcare was stable and respectable. She lived in a modest suburban home with her husband and their 2 kids, representing everything my parents considered normal and appropriate. And then there was me, Serafina, the family dreamer who spent her childhood sketching cafe layouts instead of studying business textbooks. While Marcus was interning at financial firms, I was working part-time at local coffee shops, learning everything from espresso extraction to customer service. While Emma was pursuing her nursing degree, I was experimenting with latte art and perfecting my grandmother's scone recipe. My parents never took my passion seriously. "Coffee shops are everywhere, Sarah," my mother would say dismissively. "You can't possibly make real money serving overpriced drinks to hipsters." My father was even blunter: "The restaurant business has the highest failure rate of any industry. You'd be throwing your life away." Marcus found my dreams particularly amusing. During family gatherings, he'd patronizingly explain market saturation in the food service industry, rattling off statistics about failed restaurants, while I sat there feeling smaller with each number. "Look, sis," he'd say with that condescending smile, "I admire your creativity, but passion doesn't pay bills. You need to think practically." Even Emma, usually the mediator in our family, would gently suggest I consider more stable options, like becoming a teacher or following her into healthcare. "You could always have coffee as a hobby," she'd say, meaning well, but missing the point entirely. The breaking point came during my college years. I was studying business administration, hoping to build a foundation for my entrepreneurial dreams, but every family dinner became an intervention. They'd present me with job listings for entry-level corporate positions, brochures for graduate programs in accounting or finance, anything to steer me away from what they saw as a childish fantasy. "Serafina, you're 22 years old," my father declared during one particularly brutal conversation. "It's time to stop playing pretend and start building a real career. Coffee shops are for teenagers, not grown women with responsibilities." That night, I made a decision that would change everything. Instead of arguing or defending my dreams, I stopped talking about them altogether. I let my family believe I'd abandoned my cafe aspirations, nodding along when they praised me for finally seeing sense and accepting a boring office job after graduation. But secretly, I was planning I saved every penny from my corporate salary, researched locations during my lunch breaks, and spent weekends attending small business seminars and networking events. I watched YouTube videos about coffee roasting, studied successful cafe business models, and slowly built relationships with local suppliers and potential investors. For 2 years, I lived a double life. At family gatherings, I played the role of the reformed dreamer who'd finally embraced reality. I let Marcus explain investment strategies to me, nodded when my parents talked about the importance of job security, and even dated a lawyer they introduced me to, because he seemed appropriate. Meanwhile, I was quietly assembling everything I needed to prove them wrong. I found a perfect location in the heart of downtown, secured a business loan, and developed a comprehensive business plan that would make any investor proud. I wasn't just chasing a dream anymore, I was building an empire. The irony wasn't lost on me. While my family thought they'd successfully talked me out of my unrealistic goals, they'd actually motivated me to work harder, plan better, and dream bigger than I ever would have on my own. 3 years ago, Thanksgiving dinner at the Walsh house became the scene of the most devastating family betrayal I've ever experienced. I'd spent months perfecting my business plan, securing initial funding, and finding the perfect downtown location. I was finally ready to share my real plans with my family, foolishly believing that my thorough preparation would earn their support. The dining room was picture perfect as always. My mother had outdone herself with the decorations, and the smell of turkey and stuffing filled the air. Marcus arrived fashionably late, straight from his office, bragging about a major deal he'd just closed. Emma came with her family, the kids, adding cheerful chaos to the usually formal atmosphere. After the meal, during dessert, I took a deep breath and made my announcement. I have something important to share with everyone. I began, my heart pounding. I've been working on something for the past 2 years, and I'm finally ready to move forward. I'm opening my own cafe. The reaction was immediate and brutal. My father nearly choked on his pumpkin pie, my mother's face went pale, and Marcus actually started laughing, not a chuckle, but full-blown doubled-over laughter that filled the entire room. "Oh my God," Sarah, Marcus gasped between laughs. "You're serious? You're actually going through with this coffee shop nonsense? I thought you'd grown out of this phase years ago." My mother's shock quickly turned to anger. "Serafina Walsh, please tell me you're joking. After everything we've discussed, after all the practical advice we've given you, you're still chasing this ridiculous fantasy." My father was quieter, but more cutting. "How much money have you wasted on this foolishness? Please don't tell me you've taken out loans for something this risky. The insurance alone will bankrupt you." But it was Emma's reaction that hurt the most. My usually supportive sister shook her head with genuine disappointment. "Sarah, honey, I thought you were smarter than this. You have a good job, you're finally stable. Why would you throw that away for something so uncertain?" I tried to explain my business plan, the market research I'd conducted, the location I'd secured, but they weren't listening. They'd already made up their minds that I was making a catastrophic mistake. "Do you have any idea what the failure rate is for restaurants?" Marcus continued, his voice dripping with condescension. 80% fail within the first year. You're essentially gambling with your future." My mother joined in. "And the hours, Sarah, you'll be working 16-hour days, 7 days a week. You'll never have time for a social life, for marriage, for children. Is serving coffee really worth sacrificing everything normal people want?" The conversation spiraled from there. My father started lecturing me about financial responsibility, my mother worried about what their friends would think, and Marcus pulled out his phone to show me statistics about failed food service businesses. Emma kept suggesting I think about this more, and consider the impact on my future family. But the worst part wasn't their criticism, it was their complete dismissal of my preparation and planning. When I mentioned my business loan approval, my father said I'd been deceived by predatory lenders. When I described my location research, my mother called it naive optimism. When I explained my marketing strategy, Marcus said I was playing with concepts I didn't understand. They treated me like a child playing dress-up, not a grown woman who'd spent 2 years carefully planning every aspect of her business venture. Every question I answered led to 3 more dismissive comments. Every document I showed them was met with skepticism and condescension. The final blow came when my father stood up from the table, his face red with frustration. "Serafina, I'm not going to sit here and watch you destroy your life. If you go through with this insane plan, don't come crying to us when it all falls apart. And don't expect any financial help when you're drowning in debt." My mother nodded emphatically. "We've given you the best advice we can. If you choose to ignore it, you'll have to live with the consequences alone." Marcus, still smirking, added his final insult. "When this whole thing crashes and burns, and it will, maybe you'll finally be ready to listen to people who actually understand business." I left that dinner feeling completely alone and utterly betrayed. The people who were supposed to support me unconditionally had instead united to tear down my dreams with surgical precision. They hadn't just disagreed with my decision, they'd actively tried to sabotage my confidence and determination. That night, driving home in my beat-up Honda Civic while Marcus's BMW gleamed in their driveway, I made a vow. I wouldn't just prove them wrong, I would build something so successful that their criticism would haunt them forever. They wanted to see failure, I'd give them a front-row seat to watch me succeed beyond their wildest imagination. The Monday after that devastating Thanksgiving dinner, I walked into my corporate job for the last time. While my family's brutal criticism still stung, it had also crystallized my determination into something unbreakable. I submitted my resignation letter, cleaned out my desk, and used my final paycheck to make the security deposit on my downtown Café location. The next 18 months were the hardest and most rewarding of my life. I threw myself into building Serafina's sanctuary with an intensity that bordered on obsession. Every morning I arrived at 5 a.m. to oversee construction, manage contractors, and handle the 1,000 tiny details that transform an empty space into a thriving business. My days blended together in a beautiful chaos of sawdust paint samples, equipment installations, and permit applications. While Marcus was attending corporate happy hours, and Emma was settling into her suburban routine, I was learning about commercial espresso machines, designing custom furniture, and developing relationships with local artists whose work would eventually grace my walls. The location I'd chosen was perfect, a corner spot in the heart of downtown surrounded by office buildings, apartments, and the university campus. High foot traffic, excellent visibility, and just enough character to feel authentic without being pretentious. I negotiated a 5-year lease with an option to expand despite my landlord's initial skepticism about my age and experience. Funding was my biggest challenge. The business loan covered basic startup costs, but I needed additional capital for equipment, inventory, and marketing. I sold my car and bought a used bicycle, moved from my apartment to a tiny studio above a laundromat, and took on freelance graphic design work during late-night hours. Every dollar I earned went straight into the cafe. But the real breakthrough came when I connected with local suppliers and farmers. Instead of going through large distributors, I built direct relationships with coffee roasters, bakeries, and organic farms within a 50-mile radius. This approach wasn't just more cost-effective, it created a unique selling proposition that larger chains couldn't replicate. My menu development took months of experimentation. I perfected my grandmother's scone recipe, created signature drink combinations, and partnered with a local chef to develop a selection of artisanal sandwiches and salads. Everything was made fresh daily using ingredients sourced from our regional partners. The design process was equally intensive. I wanted Serafina's sanctuary to feel like a living room where strangers became friends over exceptional coffee. Warm lighting, comfortable seating areas, local artwork, and a community bulletin board where people could share everything from apartment listings to poetry readings. The space needed to serve busy professionals, grabbing morning coffee, students studying for exams, and friends meeting for leisurely afternoon conversations. Marketing required creativity rather than budget. I spent weekends at farmers markets, networking events, and community gatherings, building relationships and spreading word about the upcoming opening. I created social media accounts, showcasing behind-the-scenes construction photos, introducing our supplier partners, and sharing the story behind each menu item. 3 months before opening, I started reaching out to local food bloggers, journalists, and influencers. Instead of begging for coverage, I invited them to be part of our story. I offered exclusive tastings of new menu items, behind-the-scenes tours, and opportunities to meet our supplier partners. This approach generated genuine enthusiasm rather than obligatory mentions. Staff recruitment was crucial. I needed people who shared my vision of exceptional service and community building. Instead of posting generic job listings, I visited other local businesses, talked to baristas and servers who impressed me, and offered opportunities to grow with a new company. I found 5 incredible team members who brought experience, creativity, and genuine passion for hospitality. Training took weeks. We practiced until every drink was consistent, every customer interaction was warm and professional, and every team member could explain the story behind our ingredients and suppliers. I wanted our opening day to feel polished and established, not chaotic and amateur. During this entire process, my family remained completely silent. No phone calls asking about progress, no offers to help, no expressions of curiosity about my venture. The contrast was striking. While I was working 18-hour days to build something meaningful, they continued their routine lives, apparently confident that my foolish experiment would soon collapse and vindicate their Thanksgiving. Predictions. Marcus occasionally posted social media updates about his latest business trips and investment successes, always using language that subtly emphasized the gap between his real career and my hobby project. Emma shared photos of her comfortable suburban life, complete with family dinners and weekend activities, that highlighted the stability I was supposedly sacrificing. But their silence and subtle digs only fueled my determination. Every late night spent perfecting recipes, every early morning spent training staff, every weekend spent building community partnerships, was motivated by my desire to prove them catastrophically wrong. Opening day was set for a crisp October morning, exactly 13 months after that devastating Thanksgiving dinner. I'd invested everything I had financially, emotionally, and physically into creating something that would either validate my dreams or confirm my family's worst predictions. The night before we opened, I stood alone in Serafina's sanctuary, surrounded by the fruits of 18 months of relentless work. The space was beautiful, the team was ready, and our first orders were already placed with suppliers. Tomorrow would determine whether my family had been wise counselors or dream-crushing pessimists. Either way, I was about to find out. October 15th, our opening day, dawned gray and drizzly, exactly the kind of weather that makes people crave warm, cozy spaces and exceptional coffee. I arrived at 4:30 a.m., my heart pounding with a mixture of terror and excitement. After 18 months of preparation, Serafina's sanctuary was about to face its first real test. My team arrived by 5:15 a.m., and I could see the same nervous energy in their faces that I was feeling. We'd rehearsed everything countless times, but opening day has its own unpredictable magic. Sarah, my head barista, started the espresso machines, while Tom, our baker, began pulling fresh scones and muffins from the ovens. The aroma that filled our space was absolutely perfect: rich coffee, warm pastries, and that indefinable scent of new beginnings. Our first customer arrived at 6:02 a.m., a construction worker from the building project across the street. He ordered a large dark roast and one of Tom's blueberry muffins, paid with exact change, and paused at the door to say, "This place smells incredible. I'll be back tomorrow." That simple interaction felt like a victory. By 7:30 a.m., we had a steady stream of morning commuters discovering us. Word spread quickly through the downtown professional crowd. The coffee was exceptional, the pastries were fresh, and the service was genuinely friendly. Our location's foot traffic was even better than I'd projected, and people were lingering longer than expected, creating the community atmosphere I'd envisioned. The real breakthrough came around 10 a.m. when Dr. Elizabeth Chen, a prominent local food critic, walked in unannounced. I recognized her immediately, but didn't want to overwhelm her with attention. She ordered our signature sanctuary blend, and a lavender honey scone found a quiet corner table, and spent 40 minutes writing notes, while observing everything from our coffee preparation to our customer interactions. 2 days later, her review ran in the city's main newspaper with the headline, "Serafina's Sanctuary, Downtown's Hidden Gem Delivers Exceptional Experience." She praised our coffee quality, local sourcing, community atmosphere, and what she called refreshingly authentic hospitality in an era of corporate uniformity. The review included specific mentions of Tom's baking skills, Sarah's latte art, and our carefully curated local artwork. That review changed everything. Our second week saw a 300% increase in customer traffic, and people started coming specifically because of Dr. Chen's recommendation. Local food bloggers began featuring us in their guides. University students adopted us as their study headquarters, and nearby office workers made us part of their daily routines. By month 3, we were consistently profitable with daily sales exceeding my most optimistic projections. We'd built a loyal customer base who didn't just buy our products, they'd become advocates, bringing friends, family members, and colleagues to experience what they'd discovered. The community aspect I dreamed of was materializing beautifully. Our bulletin board buzzed with activity, our monthly art exhibitions drew crowds, and we'd started hosting weekly events like book clubs, poetry readings, and acoustic music performances. Serafina's Sanctuary had become more than a cafe, it was a downtown cultural hub. 6 months in, we expanded our hours to accommodate demand and hired 3 additional staff members. Our wholesale relationships with local businesses were thriving, and we'd started catering corporate events and private parties. The financial success was gratifying, but the community impact was what truly energized me. Local news stations began featuring us in their local business spotlight segments, emphasizing our commitment to regional suppliers and community building. A lifestyle magazine included us in their Best New Café annual list, describing Serafina's Sanctuary as proof that independent businesses can compete with chains by offering what corporations cannot: authentic relationships and genuine community connection. The contrast with my family's predictions couldn't have been starker. They'd warned about impossible hours, financial failure, and social isolation. Instead, I was working reasonable schedules with an incredible team, generating impressive profits and building meaningful relationships throughout the community. During this period, my family maintained their silence. No congratulations, no acknowledgement of Dr. Chen's review, no recognition of our growing success. Occasionally, I'd hear through mutual friends that my parents had mentioned my little coffee shop in conversations, but always with qualifiers, like "we'll see how long it lasts," or "the real test comes after the novelty wears off." Marcus, meanwhile, was posting increasingly elaborate social media updates about his corporate achievements, investment portfolio performance, and expensive purchases. But I noticed his posts were getting fewer likes and comments while my cafe's social media was growing organically through customer enthusiasm and word-of-mouth recommendations. Emma remained cordial when we occasionally crossed paths at community events, but there was a distance that hadn't existed before. She'd ask polite questions about the cafe, but I could sense her discomfort with my success. It didn't fit the narrative they'd constructed about my unrealistic dreams and inevitable failure. As we approached our first anniversary, I realized that Serafina's Sanctuary had exceeded every goal I'd set. We were profitable, sustainable, and growing. We'd created jobs for 8 people, supported dozens of local suppliers, and became an integral part of downtown's cultural landscape. But the best was yet to come. Because while I'd been building my empire one cup of coffee at a time, Marcus's seemingly unstoppable corporate career was about to hit some serious turbulence. And when it did, my family's smug confidence in their conventional wisdom would crumble faster than day-old pastries. 18 months after opening Serafina's sanctuary, I was reviewing our impressive year-end financial reports when my phone rang with a call that would change everything. It was Emma, and her voice carried an urgency I hadn't heard since childhood emergencies. "Sarah, we need to talk," she said, skipping her usual pleasantries. "It's about Marcus. Something's happened at his company and, well, he's in serious trouble." The story that emerged over the next hour was both shocking and oddly satisfying. Marcus's investment firm had been under federal investigation for securities fraud. And while Marcus wasn't directly implicated in the illegal activities, several of his major deals had been flagged as suspicious. The company was shutting down, all employees were being terminated immediately, and Marcus's reputation in the financial industry was essentially destroyed. But the real kicker, the firm's collapse meant that Marcus's stock options, bonus payments, and profit-sharing agreements were worthless. His entire compensation package, which he'd bragged about for years, vanished overnight. Worse, he'd used his expected bonuses as collateral for loans on his luxury apartment, BMW, and expensive lifestyle. Without his inflated income, he couldn't maintain his payments. Emma's call was actually a family intervention request. "Mom and Dad want to have a family meeting this Sunday," she explained. "They're worried about Marcus's financial situation and, well, they think we should all help him get through this rough patch." The irony was delicious. The same family who'd laughed at my business plan, predicted my certain failure, and warned me not to expect their support when I came crawling back, were now asking for my help to bail out their golden child. I agreed to attend the meeting, curious to see how my family would handle this reversal of fortune. Sunday dinner at my parents' house felt surreal. The same dining room where they'd torn apart my dreams was now the scene of their desperate damage control. Marcus looked terrible. Gone was the arrogant confidence I'd endured for years. His expensive suit couldn't hide the stress lines around his eyes, or the way his hands trembled when he thought no one was looking. He'd aged 5 years in 5 months. My parents were in full crisis management mode. They'd already offered to let Marcus move back into his childhood bedroom, suggested he could work at my father's accounting firm temporarily, and were exploring options for helping with his debt payments. "The important thing is that we support each other during difficult times," my mother announced, setting the stage for what was coming next. "Family always comes first, no matter what." My father nodded gravely. "Marcus has had an unfortunate setback, but he's still incredibly talented. He just needs time to rebuild and find the right opportunity." Then came the ask. "Sarah, your cafe seems to be doing well," my mother continued, her tone carefully casual. "We were wondering if you might have any opportunities for Marcus. Maybe he could help with the business side of things, handle your finances, provide some professional guidance." The audacity was breathtaking. They wanted me to hire the brother who'd publicly mocked my business plan, predicted my failure, and dismissed my entrepreneurial dreams as playing pretend. They wanted me to rescue the person who'd laughed when I announced my cafe plans and lectured me about market saturation statistics. Marcus finally spoke up, his voice lacking its usual condescension. "Sarah, I know we haven't always seen eye to eye on business matters, but I have extensive experience in financial management and investment strategies. I could really help you optimize your operations and explore growth opportunities." Even in his desperation, he couldn't acknowledge that he'd been wrong about my chances for success. He was still positioning himself as the expert who could help me improve what I'd already built successfully without him. Emma jumped in with emotional appeals about family loyalty, forgiveness, and the importance of supporting each other through challenges. "Sarah, you've always been the most generous person in our family. I know you wouldn't want to see Marcus struggle when you're in a position to help." I let them present their entire case before responding. They painted pictures of temporary assistance, family unity, and Marcus's valuable expertise. They reminded me of childhood memories, family traditions, and the importance of forgiveness. They carefully avoided mentioning their Thanksgiving predictions, their complete lack of support during my startup phase, or their confident assumptions about my inevitable failure. Finally, my father played what he thought was his strongest card. Sarah, this is your chance to show real family leadership. Successful people help lift others up. This is how you prove you've truly made it. The manipulation was transparent, but I let them finish their pitch. Then I smiled the same polite smile I'd perfected during all those family dinners when they'd dismissed my dreams. I appreciate you thinking of me, I said calmly, but I'm afraid Serafina's sanctuary isn't the right fit for Marcus's skill set. We're doing quite well with our current team, and we've built our success around a specific culture and approach that might not align with his experience. The silence that followed was deafening. They'd been so confident that I'd jump at the chance to help, so certain that family obligation would override any lingering hurt feelings. Marcus's face flushed red. Sarah, I'm not asking for charity. I'm offering to contribute my expertise to help you grow your business. That pause before business said everything. Even in his desperation, he still couldn't fully respect what I'd built. I understand, I replied, but we're quite satisfied with our current growth trajectory and financial management. We've actually exceeded all our projections for the first 2 years. What I didn't mention was that Serafina's sanctuary had just secured a second location, signed a book deal for a cookbook featuring our recipes and supplier stories, and been approached by 3 different investors interested in franchising opportunities. The real bombshell was still to come. 6 months after that awkward family meeting, the final act of this story played out in the most satisfying way imaginable. I was putting finishing touches on our second location, a beautiful space in the trendy arts district that would triple our capacity, when my phone buzzed with a text from Marcus that I'll never forget. Can we meet for coffee? I owe you an apology. We met at the original Serafina's sanctuary on a busy Thursday morning. The irony wasn't lost on me. Marcus, who'd once dismissed my cafe dreams as fantasy, was now sitting in the empire I'd built, surrounded by evidence of everything he'd said was impossible. He looked different. Humbler. The designer suit was gone, replaced by a modest button-down and khakis. His expensive watch had been sold months ago to help with debt payments. But more than his appearance, his entire demeanor had changed. Sarah, I've been doing a lot of thinking since everything fell apart. He began stirring his coffee nervously. I owe you more than an apology. I owe you recognition. You were right about everything, and I was an arrogant idiot. He went on to explain how his corporate career had crumbled completely. The investigation had cleared him of criminal wrongdoing, but his association with the firm made him unemployable in the financial industry. He'd spent months networking, interviewing, and facing rejection after rejection. His expensive lifestyle had collapsed. He'd moved back in with our parents, and he was working part-time at a local retail store while trying to rebuild his career. The worst part, he continued, wasn't losing my job or my apartment, or even my reputation. It was realizing how wrong I'd been about you. While I was playing with other people's money and calling myself successful, you were building something real, something lasting, something that actually matters to people. I listened without interrupting, watching my formerly arrogant brother genuinely humble himself for the first time in our lives. But I wasn't finished with him yet. Marcus, I appreciate the apology, but I need you to understand something. When you and our parents laughed at my dreams, that Thanksgiving, you didn't just hurt my feelings. You tried to destroy my confidence at the exact moment I needed support most. You made me question everything I believed about myself. His face crumpled with genuine remorse. I know. I'm so sorry, Sarah. I thought I was being realistic, protecting you from disappointment. I didn't understand that I was just protecting my own ego by dismissing anything I couldn't control or understand. The thing is, I continued. Your dismissal actually motivated me to work harder, plan better, and prove you wrong more completely than I ever imagined possible. So, in a weird way, I should thank you. That's when I dropped the news that would complete this story's perfect symmetry. Marcus, I have something to tell you. Last month, 3 different investment groups approached me about franchising Serafina's Sanctuary. The preliminary valuations are suggesting the brand could be worth $15 million within 5 years. His jaw literally dropped. The little sister he'd condescendingly lectured about market realities had built something worth more than he'd earned in his entire corporate career. But more importantly, I added, we're expanding rapidly and we actually do need someone with financial expertise to help manage our growth. Someone who understands investment scaling and business development. I paused, letting hope flicker in his eyes before delivering the real message. Unfortunately, we need someone who shares our values of community building, authentic relationships, and long-term thinking. Someone who understands that real success isn't just about numbers on a spreadsheet, but about creating something meaningful that improves people's lives. The hope faded as he understood what I was really saying. However, I continued, if you're genuinely committed to learning our approach and starting at the bottom to earn your way up, I might have an entry-level position available. It would mean working as a barista, learning every aspect of our operation from the ground up, and proving that you can contribute to our culture before taking on any management responsibilities. Marcus stared at me for a long moment, processing the offer. His sister, whose dreams he'd mocked, was offering him a chance to rebuild his career, but only if he was willing to admit he'd been completely wrong about everything. I'll take it, he said quietly. Whatever you need, whatever role you have available. I want to learn how you built this. That conversation happened 8 months ago. Marcus has been working as a barista at our original location, learning our systems, building relationships with customers, and slowly earning the respect of our team. He's good at it, actually. Turns out that humility is an excellent foundation for genuine customer service. Our parents have also come around, though it took longer. They finally visited Serafina's Sanctuary 3 months ago, and were shocked by what they found, not just the financial success but the community we'd built. Seeing their daughter's name on a business that employed 23 people, supported dozens of local suppliers, and had become a cultural landmark, forced them to confront their own prejudices about practical careers. My mother now brags about my incredible business acumen to her friends, conveniently forgetting her predictions about inevitable failure. My father has started asking for my advice about small business investments, treating me like the expert I always was, but he never recognized. Emma has been the most gracious about admitting she was wrong. She's become one of our biggest supporters, hosting her book club meetings at the Café, and bringing her nursing colleagues for regular coffee dates. As I sit here today reviewing plans for our 4th location and preparing for a feature article in Entrepreneur magazine about young business leaders redefining success, I can't help but reflect on this journey. The family that once laughed at my dreams is now asking for my business advice. The brother who lectured me about market realities is learning to make the perfect cappuccino under my guidance. The parents who warned me about inevitable failure now proudly display newspaper clippings about my success. This story isn't just about proving doubters wrong, it's about the courage to pursue your vision when everyone around you insists it's impossible. It's about turning family betrayal into motivation, and using their limitations to fuel your determination. But here's what I want you to think about. Have you ever had family members dismiss your dreams as unrealistic? Have you watched someone close to you face consequences for their arrogance, while you were building something they said was impossible? Drop a comment below and share your own stories of family karma coming full circle. Did justice feel as sweet as you expected, or did success change how you felt about the people who doubted you? If this story resonated with you, smash that like button. It really helps the channel reach other people who might need to hear that their dreams are valid even when family says otherwise. And definitely subscribe, because I'll be sharing more stories about turning life's biggest challenges into unexpected victories. Most importantly, share this video with someone who might need a reminder that family doubt doesn't define your potential. Sometimes the people who claim to love us most are the least equipped to envision our success. Thank you for listening to my story of how cafe dreams became downtown reality, how family mockery became motivation, and how the sweetest revenge is building a life that proves them wrong while still leaving room for forgiveness. Remember, your dreams are valid, your vision matters, and sometimes the best response to "you can't" is simply "watch me." Keep building, keep believing, and keep proving that success looks different than narrow minds can imagine.